Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching episode 16 of the Bias Podcast. We'll get right into it. We do have a few things to talk about, including the different sports events going on, the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf trial. Bill Gates was doing a congressional hearing, I believe, or a testimony. Elon's a trillionaire. We'll kind of go over the Blue Origin exploding, although I know that was last month. But yeah, so we'll jump right into the Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf story first. Karmelo Anthony was 17 at the time, now 19, was just sentenced to 35 years in prison on June 9th to the 10th, 2026, after a Collin County, Texas jury convicted him of first-degree murder in the fatal stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. The incident occurred on April 2nd, 2025, during a district-wide high school track and field meet in Kunkendall Stadium in Frisco, Texas. Anthony entered or was under the Memorial High School team's tent area. A confrontation arose when Metcalf and his twin brother, Hunter, told Anthony to leave. Witnesses say Anthony pulled a knife and stabbed Metcalf once in the chest. They told him to leave prior. He didn't want to go out in the rain. Anthony was charged as an adult and pled not guilty, arguing self-defense. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before convicting him of murder. If you do hear thunder too, it is pouring outside, so I apologize for that. But yeah, it was due to rain any time this week. Either way, prosecutors argued Anthony provoked the fight and overreacted. The case drew significant national attention. My friends are all talking about it too. A lot of people around me are talking about it. I've been seeing people on social media speak about it too. So this is one of those nationwide unfortunate events that do happen. And I try as much as possible to not have an opinion on it for as long as possible. Although we'll look at a video here with Stephen A. Smith. He does a great job summing it all up. It's very cut and dry. Someone killed someone. And if you don't realize, if you are siding with one or the other, like if you really feel deep down that you have to let this affect you emotionally, you're doing exactly what the media is intended to do to you. You're a sheep at the end of the day. If you're letting this whole thing really affect you, your psyche, if you're not related to them, if you're not friends of either of these people, then it really doesn't, it shouldn't provoke you as much as it does. The only reason it's provoking you even this much is because the media is telling you you need to feel a certain type of way, that you need to feel about this in general. The media wants you to be angry. It wants to distract you, and it's going to make a shit salad and feed it to you every single day. My biggest thing about this, I just wanted to know if they knew each other. And once I found out that Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf did not know each other prior to the incident, I mean, what else do you need to know other than he brought a knife? I mean, maybe the twins provoked him or whatever, but there's absolutely no reason to kill someone over words. And I think I could put up a good argument if someone really believed deep down that there is plenty of reasons to kill someone over words. By all means, I don't think you'll ever win that argument. The thunder, you can definitely hear it. There's absolutely no way you can't hear that. But whatever. Either way, we'll go ahead and listen to Stephen A. Smith. Like I said, he does a great job just kind of going over everything, saying what everybody's thinking.
There was no other way Carmelo Anthony.
Hold on, I gotta Put it through the headphones. But he does a great job just saying what everyone's thinking. He has the platform to say it. It's news. I get it. I guess I didn't have to turn those on. Sorry, I forgot to put the screen on. Yeah, I think it sums it all up right there. It doesn't. It there's absolutely no reason. There's absolutely no reason to kill somebody. And I mean, as much as I'm, you know, just going off about how the media's influencing us to speak about it. Um, yeah, there's plenty of information online. I mean, they didn't use his money for a lawyer. I don't think I think there's people in this world that care about it more than his parent, his stepmom, his family. Or maybe not. Maybe they don't, and they're just emotional about it, and they don't know how to control their emotions. From the footage I've been watching, but if you're making it a race thing, you're doing exactly what the media wants you to do. If you care, if it really affects you and you're not his family or his friends, you're doing exactly what the media wants you to do. You're a sheep, and you're probably the same type of person that preaches to people to think for themselves. And you're over here letting the media tell you exactly how to think. Um, I didn't even really know this was still going on. I thought, I don't really watch the mainstream media, and when I do, it's really only to gather context. Um, but regardless, I was in the hotel this last week for training with my work outside of the podcast and everything, and outside of everything I'm working on, and it was it's remarkable. The media may never change. It may never change at all, because it has been the same layout as long as I can remember, and who knows how far before that, when they figured it out. You have a bad story or a negative story, something that brings that emotion out of you, a car wreck, you know, um, people jumping the board, or fucking some kid getting stabbed, something to really rile you up and draw a line in the sand. It doesn't matter what it is. You have a bad story, then you have a terrible story, which is something like they've been working up for a while, like this Anthony Metcalf or Karmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf story. So bad, terrible story, then you put a good thing in there, and then you put the real news right after the good thing, right after you work someone up and, made them sensory overload and you captured their emotions. Bad, bad, terrible, good thing, real news. And then maybe terrible, bad, bad, terrible, good thing, real news, bad thing. So you just mix in the actual things that people should be talking about with a bunch of this bullshit that happens everywhere in the world. People are so concerned with Carmelo Anthony. Yeah, fuck him. R.I.P. Austin Metcalf. Fuck Carmelo Anthony. There are slaves still all over the world. I mean, if you're gonna make it about race, and slavery is a lot broader than just race. It's religion. It can boil down to just community privilege, not having to work for other people in certain cultures. But regardless, there's so many more real things to talk about in the world. And some people don't even want to have those. The same people that don't want to have those conversations are the ones that feed into, really diving in and finding a reason to bitch about things that don't even relate to them, like the Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf. This is not in any way bigger than you think it is. People thinking that this is going to cause a revolutionary war, a race war. They would have already happened. And if and when it does happen, I promise you, it's not because of this. It's because people in power need you to do that to make them more money somehow. It's never going to be because the community gets together and rises up un un without, I can't think of the word, from not from an outside influence, uninfluenced by someone outside of that community who is probably the CIA or the government, Mossad, whoever you want to blame, a billionaire, Bill Gates, fucking Elon Musk, now a trillionaire. It doesn't matter. It's never going to be because it was the community's initial idea. Someone will plant the seed and it may or may not happen. And all you can do in the meantime is build yourself and your community in a positive way. But either way, just to put a pin on the Anthony Metcalf stuff, I'm glad he's in jail. It's unfortunate the kid's dead. Austin, RIP. No one should die for their words, for something they say. It's really that simple. You should be able to say absolutely anything to anybody, and the other person should have the emotional intelligence, the ability to control themselves physically and not let, like, some people really live in a world where they don't even realize they're controlled by other people, by their words. It's like a spell. And you can say the right thing to somebody, and maybe they'll hurt you, maybe they'll hurt someone else, maybe they'll go do something else, and do something. But to not have that ability it's remarkable. There's people in the world like that. I'm sure I have it sometimes too. I can't, I'm not going to go out and kill someone, of course, but because they made fun of me or something, but um another thing I saw is Carmelo Anthony and his family, they probably he probably got a lot, his sentence is probably a lot lighter than it would have been if this wasn't a national story, just because there's a million Carmelo Anthony, Austin Metcalf cases. Doesn't matter what race, could be the other way around. There's millions and millions of these cases all over the world, and a lot of them, the murderers, they get sentenced to death or they get put in prison for life, without possibility of parole. I think because of this, it did a lot of good, because now the jurors, if they ever if anyone ever finds out who they are, they're, they could get hurt or something like that. I saw a video. I don't know how accurate it was, but someone ran up and punched someone, claiming that they were a juror and threatening them. And yeah, just imagine if this wasn't a divisive tool used by the media, then the court system could have actually, taken its time. There would have probably been way less bias. Maybe there was evidence that was never presented. Who knows? You know, Either way, at the end of the day, it became about money the moment it became national. Excuse me. And his parents took advantage of him. Unfortunately, Carmelo Anthony's parents took advantage of him, took his money, $600,000, I believe, and bought a mansion, I don't know if it was a mansion, bought a house, bought a car, and didn't invest it in the trial. But I say all this, and I know I I preach that the media wants us to talk about it, so I'm just doing my part in expressing my opinion on it, I guess, and doing exactly what the media wants us to do, which is talk about it. But it shouldn't go without saying that as I'm sitting there in the hotel room and I'm seeing the bad, terrible, good stuff, the real news, little old Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft, testifying in a closed-door session before the U.S. House Oversight Committee. And they just briefly bring it to light, and then it's right back in. About the Epstein stuff, bring it to light, right back in. Now, a few key details from the testimony. The transcribed interview lasted approximately 5 to 6 hours. Gates appeared voluntarily. What better time to appear voluntarily than during one of the largest murder trials of the past 5 years? I don't know, 10 years. There's one every so often. Gates appeared voluntarily. He described meeting Epstein as a grave error in judgment, first honest thing he's ever said, and said he was one of many people who regret never knowing him. He emphasized that he never witnessed nor had any indication that Epstein was engaged in ongoing criminal conduct. Lies. I'm sorry. I just don't. I don't believe you can hang out with this man and never realize he was doing anything bad. Has never victimized anyone and hoped his testimony would help provide justice for victims. Main points. Gates acknowledged multiple meetings with Epstein starting around 2011, 2013, primarily in hopes of philanthropic discussions related to global health initiatives with the Gates Foundation, but said nothing substantial He stated Epstein tried to use knowledge of Gates' extramarital affairs to pressure him into continuing the relationship after Gates tried to distance himself. Gates denied. I think he flew there handfuls of time. One of the people who flew there the most. Gates denied any awareness of Epstein's criminal activities, sex trafficking, etc., and denied any wrongdoing of his part. The committee, led by Chairman James Comer, has been reviewing blah, 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 blah. We do have a video from CNBC. We'll go ahead and play that. It's just Bill Gates walking out of the trial, though. Sorry if that was too loud. You know, there's not much I can say that I haven't already said in the past videos about my thoughts on these billionaires because, in all honesty, maybe not Bill Gates. I didn't look into him too much, but when I was young, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates to some extent, honestly, quite a lot of it. Because, all I saw as a kid about Bill Gates was his come up. I didn't know, you're so young, you don't know much about nepotism and how already in the club he was, as far as I'm aware. I mean, that seems to be how a lot of these younger guys get in. But to an extent, these billionaires are people that that kids and kids with dreams and kids who want to help people look up to some extent. So I don't know how much I don't know how much more I can say that I believe that capitalism, the generic form of capitalism that we see, is has climaxed and is plateauing, and all we need is someone to set an example. You know, you can have like Elon or these guys, they don't have their billions on cash on hand. It's all capital. It's tied up in their businesses. It's net worth, it's assets, it's how much their houses are, their cars. So, I mean, someone could still be a billionaire or a trillionaire, and all it means is sacrificing a lot of the material items and finding a way to put it back in the pockets of the people who contribute the most to your empire that you've created. And I'm sure a lot of people who's helped him build Microsoft, Elon with Tesla, SpaceX, Warren Buffett, and um, I can never remember Berkshire Hathaway. You know, I'm sure people were fed. The whole team, everyone got rich, but these guys got really, really rich. And I just wonder if the next evolution, because first you have fucking, it was cavemen, sticks and stones. Whoever had the biggest muscles was in charge. And then you get, okay, starting to farm, whoever has the most crops, whoever can provide the most food. And then kingdoms, it's all feudal. Whoever has the most gold has the largest army. And now I mean, as close as I think we can get to a democracy, a democratic republic. Um, but in a sense, I guess it's branching off into two different problems. One problem is that government is truly a giant company, and the shareholders are these billionaires, you know, are these undercover trillionaires. I doubt Elon's the first trillionaire ever. I'm sure they're out there, and maybe he's just now joining the club. But it's unfortunate our government. I think it started off decentralized, where the shareholders were the people, were the community, and it was probably a hell of a lot easier when when there were 4,000 people and they all had muskets, and everyone brought their glizzy to a fucking Senate hearing, and it was all black powder rifles, and you know people could just yop each other. But nowadays, I truly believe something's turning, and there's going to be a next generation of real people to look up to. And then 50 years after that, I'm sure ultimate power is going to corrupt ultimately, and people in power want to stay in power. So it's really going to be this a next wave because I have I have absolutely I can't say I don't have any faith because there's always going to be some, but I don't believe Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Elon, Jeff Bezos. I do not think that they're going to forfeit their material items in exchange for wealth entering the community. I think it's going to be at the expense of the government, in turn, the expense of the people. And there's going to be an even larger gap in information, technology, essential tools, everyday life, food, water. And the only way the people are going to start to thrive a little more is if the billion, trillionaire class thrives exponentially more. Um, my whole point about bringing up Bill Gates, though, after Carmelo Anthony is that the media is not helping anyone, especially moving into the right direction, let alone informing you. But as a society, it is global manipulation, and all of it is geared towards capturing your attention and not informing you about things that should be talked about. Not saying Bill Gates should be talked about and should be remembered, or maybe for the good he's done, but he does seem like a sleazy dirtbag. And honestly, I think whatever age he became a billionaire, and I think that's why working hard is extremely important, because you grow up in the process of building this thing. And when next thing you know, when if it's handed to you, you're however old you were at the time without having to go through anything. And next thing you know, you're however old this guy Bill Gates is, 70 something, 60 something, 60 something years old, with the mind of a 19-year-old, smirking at a congressional hearing in between a murder case and New York burning down because you have the money to do that. I'm not saying he chose when his case was going to be, but the irony, if it is between these two massive events, you know, the media isn't controlled by the people. It's not controlled by the government, as it shouldn't be. As it should, it shouldn't be controlled by the government, but at the very least it should be controlled by the people, but it's not. It's controlled by the shareholders of the government, and those are the billionaires who are getting away with too much and not being a good example uh, for people who do look up to them, and see that you can make something of yourself and help so many people in the process. And it does go back to what Jeff Bezos was saying. If he the way he said it, if I do my job right, I'll help way more people with my for-profit companies than I will with my nonprofit companies. Yeah, if you do your job right with the for-profit companies, if you do your job right with the nonprofit companies, you'll help more people than you would with your for-profit company. So it's all perspective, and I'm not a huge fan of nonprofit companies. If you can be a true example, help more people, and set the stage that you don't need all the material items, you don't need the assets as much as you think you do, and you can really put it all back into the company and give as much back to the consumers as possible. But the biggest problem, and I don't want to say it later in there. I know it's in my notes later on, but the biggest problem isn't. It also isn't that people aren't smart. Everybody's brilliant, smart. Your group of friends should be diverse. Someone should be, a little bit more into politics, someone else into this, someone else into that, someone to remind you that this is cool as fuck, everything going on, the fact we're even able to be in America and remind you of how much freedom we have. But a lot of people are consumers and a lot of people are lazy optimists, and these billionaires can take advantage of you. But regardless, whole point, don't trust the media. Carmelo Anthony trial. Why are you even paying attention to it? Bill Gates thing in between the New York Knicks winning 2026 NBA championship. Just leading into that makes me not even think that the NBA championships, that all sports are rigged, because I mean, it's just a perfect storm considering everything they gave us as far as the scientists, all these things worth talking about that they glazed over, going right into murder trial, little sprinkle some Bill Gates, Epstein stuff that they didn't give last. It would have been too easy if Bill Gates had his Epstein had this conversation during the missing scientists. It would have been that would have made too much sense. It would have made way too much sense. Why on earth would we talk about all these poor kids in these effed up situations and then have this guy defend himself during, when everything was getting put out there? That would make way too much sense. It would be too hard on him. It'd be too hard on this billionaire, Bill Gates. Fucking, it upsets me. Either way, we'll move on and we'll come back. I feel like this podcast is just turning into bashing the wealthy. But I want to say these a lot of these guys when I was a kid and young and malleable were people I looked up to. Like, all I can remember is a lot of the things I wanted to do I couldn't because of pre-existing medical stuff, and much of it was joining the service or being a part of protecting and serving. And uh, when I was told no, I don't know about other people, when you're told at a young age you can't do that, my first thought is, how can I help as many people as possible? Money. And it might not, that probably shouldn't be your first thought as a child, but then I'm like, well, how can I just get into the business of money? And these guys were on the top of the list. These were, billionaires was it more of a new thing when, or there weren't many of them. There was millionaires was the most I ever knew. And then you learn that there are billionaires. And, I thought these guys, you learn about their philanthropy and you learn about all this stuff. And the older you get and the more you work hard on something and the more you realize um, that there's so much more you can be doing, but you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And I think being so detached from the public, it pulls you away from your intent, and it forces you to focus on self-preservation because you finally made it. And now what? Now you're just going to give it back to people who didn't help, and you start to psych yourself out because your consumers, or whatever you want to call the people using your products, they you wouldn't have anything if there wasn't someone there to buy it, so I mean, I say this now, and then who knows, in 50 years, after there are people like this out there, someone else will be bitching about how, these guys aren't doing enough. But without further ado, let's talk about the Knicks. I'm not huge into sports, but I don't mind seeing it all unfold because, as similar as it is to politics, at least we're not bombing countries and fucking files and all these Epsteins and aliens, and it's a nice little, it's nice, it's relaxing compared to all the bullshit of politics, even if it is rigged. It's if politics and sports is entertainment, at least sports, it's much more enjoyable. Unless you're any other type of fan than a Knicks fan walking around New York after a game, you're probably getting the shit kicked out of you. The New York Knicks won the 2026 NBA Championships on June 13th, 2026, defeating the San Antonio Spurs 94-90 in Game 5 of the NBA Finals to take the series 4-1. I may be understood 3 sentences in that whole description. This marks their first title since 1973, third in franchise history, and ends a 53-year drought. Jalen Brunson was named Finals MVP after a legendary performance. Knicks 94, Spurs 90. The Knicks trailed by as many as 16 points, but mounted a strong comeback in the fourth quarter. Jalen Brunson exploded for 45 points, tying Michael Jordan for the most points in a road finals clinching game. He added rebounds and assists. Key contributors: Michael Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl Anthony Towns, and Josh Hart provided crucial support. Victor, I've heard, is it just Wembe? Can I say that? Wembenyama, and the Spurs fought hard but couldn't close it out. Yeah, let's go ahead and watch a little bit of what's going on in New York. The first thing I thought is it has to be staged. It doesn't have to be staged. It's probably not. It's probably just these buses anyway. I think something about people driving in from the buses carried people in from the FIFA stuff or something. But yeah, this is from Freedom News TV, so we'll go ahead and watch it real quick. Yeah, so I just realized the volume wasn't on for most of everything we talked about in the first half. Either way, um, still got 2 more videos, but thought I should mention that. I promise you're not going crazy if you can't hear anything. I'm just a little retarded. I'm doing this all by myself, so I do appreciate you working with me. Now we'll do this one. I think this is a fight, something about horses. Actually, there was I think there was another one on. And all I imagine is these poor bus drivers who probably won't have to pay for the damages, but feel that they may or may not in some way not be able to have a job. Their whole livelihood might be at stake just because these guys are destroying the property of whatever company they're working for. I doubt it's a school district. It's probably these buses are probably rented by somebody, but I just imagine the poor bus driver. I haven't watched this video yet. Yeah, it's probably the corniest shit. Uh, corniest shit anybody's seen in a while. But to be part of the corn, they to be the shit in the corn, the corniest of shit. To be part of that is probably extremely nostalgic. Just being there. I mean, not even participating, just being a part of it and having the ability to say you were there doing the dumbest shit, watching people ruin people's lives. But I do wish I cared as much as some people do about this stuff because it's it's got to be. It feels similar to politics where I don't really care about politics enough to know who's doing what all the time. I really just see it in passing. I watch the people I watch, the things I watch, and I get a lot of secondhand information from people who are interested in learning about it and are around other people who talk about it. The same goes for sports with me. You know what I mean? Where I'm not watching these games. I'm not watching the elections. I'm not watching the games. I'm not watching the speeches. I'm not watching, uh, the whatever else happens besides the games. I'm not following these guys. I'm not looking into. I don't follow them. I'm not following them on social media. I'm not seeing how they practice. I'm not seeing how they politic. I don't care enough to. You know what I mean? It's it's just part of the world we live in. So I feel like every single person has every right to like it or hate it. And if I can like it or hate it or not care about it, and not caring about it is out of the question at any point in time. I'd rather enjoy talking about it, you know. And the beauty of sports is it's a lot less sick than politics can be, because politics is a blood sport and there's so much disgusting things going on, especially in light of Epstein files. And then occasionally they intermingle or they entangle into one another, where there's a little bit of the you know the fucking the shit that's going on, the drama in politics is making it's in the sports, and the sports in politics, and they're it's like crossing episodes. But as fake and corny as it does look, that's the fun of it. It's in being a part of the thing, being a part of the nostalgia in 30 plus years, when this is in when you're pulling up feed and it looks like shit because it's been screen recorded so many times and you're able to say you've been there. But all I see, and I'm sure this is exactly what Bill Gates' PR guy is telling him, he's probably like, hey, Bill, all I see is what a better time to have a testimony in a closed door session before the U.S. Oversight Committee as part of its ongoing investigation into the Jeffrey Epstein, about being a fucking freak who diddles kids, and cheats on his wife with hookers, and during a murder trial. It's like, what better time than before, after a murder trial, and before all of these New York riots on the streets, you know? But we have another video, more entertainment, more things to watch, more things to be a part of from outside the chaos.
The NYPD says at least one person was shot, four injured in slashings or stabbings, and five police cars were badly damaged. In total, at least 63 arrests were made. Officers in riot gear and police horses were deployed for crowd control. At times, people were also seen throwing objects at those officers and trying to destroy buses, like this video here in Times Square. In total, 5 buses were destroyed. One of those school buses was set on fire, while fans also set fires to trash cans, and of course fireworks were going off as well. People began climbing light poles and cars, and at one point a person set off flares on top of a bus, as you can see here. Ultimately, the disorder and sporadic chaos went on for several hours overnight. The win did end the 53-year championship drought for the Knicks. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani has announced plans for a championship parade set for Thursday.
Yeah, because that's what I think they had their parade. If I'm being honest, I think that was enough. I think, honestly, I hope this happens during the parade. If they can do a ride in the daytime as well as they did one at night, that'll be beautiful. It, it's the good. You can be mad, or you can just be happy that other people are having so much corny ass stupid fun. But I think we do have one more video, and I saw this funny ass picture. Look at them. The guys who won,
Y'all know this.
chilling, smoking, having a great time. These guys don't give a fuck about these guys. Everybody causing trouble. Like, I just couldn't imagine being so. It just all goes back to letting something other than me decide how I'm gonna feel, and maybe that's just a stubborn part of me. But I can't imagine. I can't imagine. I mean, we've all been there, but I think that's something you're supposed to grow out of. Is being a grown ass man and letting a game, a literal game, a playing fun game, decide your next move. How this game turns out will decide whether you're happy, sad, or angry or upset. But hey, you're going to be able to tell your kids in 30 years, I stomped someone's face in right after the Knicks won. Yep, your uncle went to jail. He's still in prison, but damn, that was a good game. And I think we got one more. No, that was the last one. But they're all out there. There's plenty of them. Um, but yeah, what better time to have a trial? I know I'm beating a dead horse because nothing. This will just keep happening. It's just gonna keep happening. You know. But what better time to have a trial? We also had the FIFA World Cup 2026 currently underway across the United States, Canada, and Mexico. First time the tournament is co-hosted by 3 countries and expanded to 48 teams. As of mid-June 2026, the tournament kicked off around June 11th to the 12th, 2026. U.S. men's national team opened with a strong 4-1 victory over Paraguay on June 12th. At SoFi Stadium in LA. Goals included an own goal. I don't know if that's I don't think that's a good thing. A brace from Fularian and a standout strike from Gio Reyna. Christian Pulisic was a key playmaker. This is the first time in 32 years the USMNT has played a World Cup match on home soil. Their next games are against Australia, June 19th in Seattle, and the winner of a UEFA playoff. The U.S. is hosting majority of matches, around 78 to 104 in total, and 11 host cities stadiums, including LA SoFi Stadium, New York, New Jersey, MetLife Stadium. Others include Atlanta, Boston, Dallas, Houston, Kansas, blah, blah, blah. Either way, I didn't even know this was going on. It just popped on social media. And the unfortunate part is most people are realizing that this is a thing in America because of all the videos of drug addict tweakers around the stadiums. So it is sad, but it's also funny. It's not funny, not the people who are ODing on drugs. It's not funny. That's sad. But funny that most Americans are learning about this from either Americans or people from other countries, seeing all these guys on the road. That's the funny part, is that a a sport that's supposed to be all over the globe and impact the world as much as soccer does, football. um Everyone's learning about it from these guys tweaking out ODing. And here we have a video. This is from Nick Sator. I don't know who that is, but despite 1 million plus wealthy fans from around the world visiting New York for the World Cup, some soy boy saw me filming and yelled, "Have some fucking humanity," into my camera. Apparently, letting junkies die on the sidewalk is the leftist way of showing humanity. There are plenty of officers around here. That's funny. I don't know if I agree with filming, but I mean, we're seeing it, right? It's getting it out there. Soy boy though, I haven't heard soy boy in a while. But yeah, let's go ahead and do our part in exploiting these guys tweaking out. And hopefully we learn something from it.
Have some fucking humanity. Come on. Let him be.
Those shorts are really, really short, my boy. You know, now if he went over and helped them or did something other than confront the guy recording, I'd have given him props. But it kind of looks like he wanted to be on camera, you know, or ruin the shot. There's so many other ways to go about it. That's pretty funny though. Yeah, it's sad. It is. It is. It's sad, but I mean, they're in the middle of the street, you know? It's not like I don't know how much money this guy's making from recording these dudes, but um I guess the very least that the quote unquote soy boy could do is stand up for the voiceless, you know. Good for him. But um no, yeah, I just think the funny part comes from everyone learning about it through this. And I wasn't even when I this it didn't even occur to me that I was learning about it from the people tweaking. It was I think a video from Ben Stiller making his way into the doors, passing by some tweakers, and my mind wasn't even on them. It was just another piece of feed. It was just something in my feed. Just watching. I think someone was hating on Ben Stiller. Um, didn't bother me whatsoever. It just so happened to scrolled on by, and I went, oh, there's FIFA. We have a team, you know. But then you scroll enough, and you're like, you see so much, and then you see this, someone getting mad about it, and it's like, oh my god, there's the only videos I've seen are people strung out in front of the fucking stadium. Sad, but you know, ignorant Americans funny. What can you do? Maybe maybe, you know, billionaires or you know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe these for-profit companies can do more good than these non-profit companies, but we haven't seen that happen yet, especially with these. When you're being paid by the government to, if it's outsourced and contracted and your whole goal is to make money cleaning the streets, if the streets are clean, you're not going to make any more money. So, um maybe as much as I don't like nonprofits, this could be that one area. Maybe Soy Boy, maybe he could start a nonprofit if he really wanted to. Anyway, we'll move on to politics from sports, and we have the mayor of the LA stuff, the mayor in LA, Karen Bass. Um, First time learning about it, not now, but like over the past few weeks, I've been learning about Karen Bass, Nit, Nit, Nitya Raman, excuse me, Nitya Raman, and what's the dude? Spencer Pratt. Yeah, all of them. I mean, my only opinion on this, I don't even feel like reading all of it because it's about as corny as the New York stuff going on. I don't know how many times one state can constantly be considered the most expensive, the one of the worst places to live, one of the most beautiful places to live, and still one of the most expensive, worst financial places to live. I mean, it's the financially, it's probably the only reason more people don't move there who could make who could add value to the place. And I don't I don't know how many times the same group of people can run things in a democratically elected in a democratic republic before constantly making it worse, making things worse and more expensive before it just looks like blatant cheating. Like, okay, the election, the presidential election, sure, there's probably a bunch of cheating, but at least one side, in and out, they're constantly fluctuating every at least at most 2 years. You'll get another side, and even if they're all on the same team at the end of the day and they're all just doing it solely to let people think that we have a choice on who runs this government, at least they're making the steps towards making it look like it could there's not as much cheating going on as we know there is. I mean, even if the whole thing's rigged, that's still cheating at the end of the day. If the people think that it's that their vote matters, I mean, I don't know how many times California must be so wrapped up. It's beyond the bigger picture that the government presents to the people. It really is a closed off section of people in power in the party, and I'm sure there's a lot of red states like that too. But I mean, the the unfortunate truth is that if you're in a conservative state, at least there's opportunity to build something from yourself. If you're in a liberal Democrat state, there's not much of that at all. That's the that's the unfortunate truth about red versus blue is if you want to actually change the game, build something for yourself and help other people, red's always going to benefit you. If you want to take advantage of the system and help people that way and slide in to the political realm and like advocate for the people and really stretch your abilities and if you're never building yourself, helping people is you're just moving resources around. You're not taking your resources and putting them out there. So that's kind of how I see it. A very broad way to look at it. Probably one of the more ignorant ways to look at it. If I just don't know how many times, like I started it, California can constantly be a blue state without it being like, oh, this isn't working. Oh, another. It has. There should have been absolutely no way Spencer Pratt shouldn't have won. I mean, he did his part. He played the part. It was kind of like it was almost like he was like a very Californian Trump, very democratic version of Trump. It seemed like he definitely personified his inner Trump, is what it looked like. And I don't know, it didn't seem as authentic. At least Trump, he seems pretty fucking authentic. He's been himself his whole life, and he brought that to the White House. Spencer Pratt, I don't know, something about him didn't seem as authentic as Karen Bass and Rahman. They just seemed extremely authentic for as they really are Democrats. Spencer Pratt just seemed like he's like a standing in for a conservative person, but he should have won. I think he should have. Um, we have a video talking about all the ballots going around and stuff, but the thing with like that's the thing, that's where we are today with what I was saying about if just unfortunately makes more sense. There's a better argument for being a conservative, and I try not to put myself in a box. I I like the idea of having a business, and the way I see it in my mind is I know there's a bunch of resources in the government. There's a bunch of resources not being allocated for, and they're being spent all over the place. And it's the budget. We're in debt. You know, there's so many. The use of resources is is constantly being manipulated and laundered, and nothing's being accounted for. It just there's so many moving parts, and we're just going further and further in debt. And in one state of mind, you can say, just give it to me. Just give me the resources, and I'll do the right thing with them. But when you have thousands and thousands of people all doing that, that's what the Democratic Party feels like from the outside, is that there's a bunch of people who all are saying, "Give me those resources and I will move them where I believe people need them the most. I will help people using the resources that the government has." You know, that's just what it seems like, and it's so many moving parts. Everybody has their own version of the ideal society or the ideal community they're looking to shape. And then the conservative party, it seems like a lot of people who it's focused on self-preservation. As much as the Democratic Party has those people too, and it's self-preservation, and oh, now that I do have stuff built, I don't want to use it. I just want to constantly use the governments. But the Conservative Party, at least for the average person, there's a path to build something out of nothing, build something that you can sell that people want to have, and you can build your own foundation. And then theoretically, in a perfect world, you can use your resources and give resources you've built to the people instead of using things people already made. But at some point of that capitalist mentality, you do get to where you built yourself up, and then you're no better than people going in and wanting to use other resources. You've got yourself up there, and now you have access to even more. And what do? You invest in politics. And next thing you know, you're Palantir ushering in your Manchurian candidate, JD Vance, to become president at some point. There's two different ways to do it. There's two different ways to do it. It's just, I feel like with the conservative way, you have that ability to look back and see what you've built instead of being fucking whoever the governor of California, whoever the dude, no one, DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, not DeSantis. See, I wish I knew more about, I wish I cared as much about politics as some people do, because it'd be so much easier to recall these names, all these fucking scumbags. And I shouldn't say that, but it'd be so much easier to recall these guys, these men and women in politics who eat each other alive and spit each other out. Um, but yeah, the mail-in ballots. Let's look at some cheating, some business as usual in the in California.
At third, suddenly gaining some ground, adding 10,000 votes as those mail-in ballots were counted. That closed the gap with second-place candidate Spencer Pratt. The U.S. Attorney's Office visiting an L.A. County vote processing center on Friday to observe the counting after President Trump called for an investigation. According to U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley, there is no evidence of anything illegal, but he says they will follow any new evidence wherever it leads them. Also, Karen Bass speaking today at an immigration roundtable saying she's not concerned about this process.
All weekend, including right after this, I'm in a meeting in Long Beach with the U.S. Conference of Mayors. There are several hundred mayors there. You know what the hot topic is? This is the hot topic right now. And people worried about elections, we're fortunate we don't have to worry about that here.
And California Secretary of State Shirley Weber reminding voters here in the Golden State that the counting could take, probably will take, up to 30 days after the election. So, got to have a lot of patience.
It's a whole season. Marianne Rafferty, thank you so much for your.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but I mean, here we go. Okay, June 2nd, election night. Spencer Pratt leads Rahman by 33,000 to 40,000 votes. Blah, blah, blah. 253,000 ballots are still outstanding. Rahman now trails by 7,500 votes. Rahman is outperforming Karen Bass. Math is simple.
Mayor's race as Nithya.
In 1 week, a 33,000 vote lead became a 7,500 vote lead. Nobody has a playbook for what the next 200,000 ballots do. But I think it's over. I think Spencer Pratt lost. From my understanding. Either way, yeah, I mean, if Spencer Pratt don't win, then it's quite obvious. You know, I know it's people of California are the ones, it's their community. The rest of the country, it seems like if you're not moving there, it's only because it's fucking expensive. It's not because it's not a beautiful place to live. But either way, that's the whole point of a democratic republic, is to constantly have the different parties in and out, making change, keeping the good stuff. And if the same people have been in power for the past however many years and it hasn't gotten any better, then you would think that the next group would come in. But people in power want to stay in power. My history teacher told me that. And it is one of the only things that continues to play a role in looking at anything from history. Most things, most anything, especially when a system is corrupt. Then we have Jeff Bezos's rocket exploding. Major incident. Not much to talk about other than it exploding, and a lot of people didn't like that, understandably. You know, I've heard my ocean is not your trash heap. To play devil's advocate. Excuse me. To play devil's advocate here, I mean, it's not like he dumped a bunch of trash in the ocean. I think at some point, if we're looking way, way into the future, the Earth's gonna be a big fucking heap of trash. You ever seen Wall-E? I mean, that's kind of where it goes if you don't actually do something about it, build something to do something about it. And then yeah, Elon is now a trillionaire. I'm sure more to come I'm sure more will come from this. First in the world to be a trillionaire, most headlines are saying. I find that extremely hard to believe. I think there's plenty of trillionaires out there. And it's just something that I think they have the money to not be known, you know. But yeah, we have a few notes on this. SpaceX, Elon's rocket company, founded in 2002, debuted on the NASDAQ with a massive IPO priced at $135 per share. opening at around 150 and soaring as high as 176 before closing up early at nearly 20%, around $161 per share. This gave the company a market valuation nearly or exceeding $2 trillion. Musk owns roughly 38.42%, 38 to 42% of SpaceX, including options and dual class shares, granting him strong voting control. His stake in SpaceX alone was valued at 820 to 870 billion post IPO. Combined with his substantial Tesla holdings, valued at 278 to 350 billion depending on the exact share price, plus smaller stakes in XAI, Neuralink, the Boring Company, and other assets. His total net worth crossed 1.1 trillion. This made him the first person in history, debatable, to reach trillionaire status. Forbes, Bloomberg, and other trackers confirmed the milestone on the day of the IPO. Background and rise, doesn't matter. But yeah, people are celebrating. I don't know who's celebrating other than his investors. There's plenty of criticism. But either way, there's plenty that's going on. If I can say anything about what we've talked about, you gotta, if you can't sit and watch the news without feeling some type of way, you're probably better off watching sports. If that's your reaction to the news, you gotta just be a sports guy. Don't be a politics guy. If you had to choose one or the other, because it's just not healthy for you. But I do appreciate you watching episode 16 of the Bias Podcast. I love you guys. I hope you have a great weekend. And if I don't see you before 4th of July, happy 4th of July. Happy weekend. See you later. Bye.